All right, all right.
How you
Took
doing?
a little minute here. I'm doing well. And yourself?
Man, I'm doing good.
Good, good. Top of the work week. You
Absolutely.
know,
I, I,
so
appre- I appreciate you so much for taking a moment to be with me on my show.
absolutely, brother. I mean, we have to take every opportunity that's available to us to make sure that we highlight these issues, get them out there, and keep the conversation going. You know.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely shout out to Tiffany for linking us up as well.
Absolutely. You can't have too many people out there who can put a good brother with a good brother and make that magic. You know what
Yeah,
I
for
mean?
sure. So just starting out for my audience that may not know you, please tell them who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm just a black man and a brother born here in the U.S., and particularly in Oakland. But I also happen to be a 15-year litigator, or what I like to call gladiator,
Yeah,
as it relates to being a civil rights attorney. So I've represented a bunch of people who have been the victims of police abuse,
yeah,
from people have never heard about to people who you've probably even seen the movie with Michael B. Jordan,
yeah,
Fruitvale Station.
yeah,
That was one of the cases that I had the honor of representing his family, Oscar Grant, that is, on
mm,
their journey to justice.
yeah.
And there's many other people too, but everyone's names are important. But that's probably the most celebrated name and understood.
Yeah, so I want to start back at the beginning. I know you're from the Yay area, and so
Yes, sir.
talk about growing up in that area. And did you always want to be an attorney?
Sure. Well, I grew up in West Oakland, and like many cities African Americans are at throughout this country and really throughout the world of the Black diaspora, was underemployed, over-policed, underdeveloped, and overstressed. And so I grew up seeing that, but I had the 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 benefit, if you will, of being able to go to school on the other side of town in a more affluent part of town. My grandmother was a domestic, and the family she worked for sponsored my sister and I to
Mm,
go to a well-to-do private school. And
yeah,
so I went home, and every day with the everyday struggle, can route, all that kind of stuff. But I got to see people who lived nothing like I lived.
yeah,
We had one cereal box; they might have had 10, at a time.
yeah,
So, so I saw the inequities, the inequality, and I always wondered, well, how could we be living in the same city, but
mhm,
be living two different lives? And so initially, I thought I wanted to be a politician and a mayor, a member of Congress. And, in some ways, I still think that is a way to help for sure. And maybe I'll take that mantle up at some later point in time. But
yeah,
for right now, what I saw as I was going through the educational system, I thought I could have more of a direct impact as an attorney. And
yeah,
so working with people. And so I set my goals on that. And so, like I said, I've been litigating cases on behalf of police victims for 15 years. Along the way, I also did serious criminal defense cases too.
yeah,
So I got a chance to see the civil aspect of when you sue people and defend people from being sued and so on and so forth, but also the criminal justice or criminal injustice aspect of
yeah,
seeing too many people, too many folk put on that train whose destination is prison or jail. I mean, that's the facts of it all. And you get on that train, whether you deserve to be there or not, it doesn't matter. The destination is the same, unless you have an attorney or somebody intervene, or you have some God-given
yeah.
intervention to get you off that destination. So,
Well, yeah,
that's what I've been doing.
yeah, and I wanted to get into that at some point within our conversation as well. Just talking about how when in certain cases when people have public defenders, they don't always have the best interests in mind for them, or don't always give that extra time for to defend them. It's like
Right.
they almost like they just want to plea it out and get you some time and go.
Well, hmm yeah, well, that experience of having a public defender is very frequent and common, especially for Black and brown folk, because you don't necessarily have the money or the resources to go and get an attorney.
Yeah,
But, it's systemic. And so they don't give, and when I say they, I mean the local government or the county, they don't give the public defenders the same resources to defend people as they do the prosecutors to prosecute people.
right.
So, it winds up with public defenders who are committed and they may love their job and, you know, they're passionate, but at the end of the day, it's a grind. And
Yeah.
just like it's grind down our own public consciousness and results in rage and bad feelings and discouragement and wanting to give up, you know, the public defenders, you know, oftentimes feel the same way because they're
Yeah.
outgunned and undermanned, like
Right.
many of us, right?
Yeah, not having those resources to put towards it on their side. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I know we're supposed to talk about the black and blue conversation. So please talk about your, I guess, your first experience dealing with the police as you grew up and how that kind of changes. Because, you know, in the beginning, like they always say, you know, the police is supposed to be your friend, but in the black communities, we never really feel that way.
Absolutely. You know, in my community, just like many other people, like many of the viewers, I'm sure, who are watching, you know, so I grew up in West Oakland where, you know, Black Panthers, you know, Black Pride is big. And, you know, they unleashed the gates of hell on our community, drugs, over policing, you know, all that type of stuff, social programs being taken away and stuff. And so, as I said, my community was very much impoverished. It was in a economic stranglehold, much
Yeah,
like what we saw with George Floyd, right? And we
yeah,
had been saying we couldn't breathe. And the response from the city was to send in police and allow, you know, this rogue group of officers called the Riders. That was literally their name. They all signed a baseball. That was like their team, and they
yeah,
terrorized our community for years, planting drugs, sending people to jail, beating people up, and
yeah,
they did that for a long time. And they were ultimately criminally prosecuted, no convictions. So you always got to watch that. It's not because there wasn't an effort to get convictions, but
yeah,
especially back in those days, you look at a jury could not be convinced that officers were doing the stuff that we're more aware and understand that they do across this country. So growing up watching that, and in fact, that put into my mind, you know, that the officers are not friends. These are people who are terrorizing our community.
hmm,
And so uh, growing up, it then became my turn to start driving. And
yeah,
like many of your viewers and maybe even yourself, brother, have gone through, when you start driving, that turns, you go from being a kid to being treated as an adult, even though you're 16.
yeah,
And you start having these life and death, antagonistic, harassment type of experience with the police front and center. It's no longer your parent, your mom, your dad, your uncle, or
yeah,
someone that's the buffer between you and the police. Now it's you. And so, you know, I got pulled over, pulled out the car, searched, humiliated, sat on the curb, handcuffed, and all those type of things consistently, a whole bunch of tickets and
yeah,
all that stuff. Just, you know, it impacts your license because if you don't take care of them, now you don't have a license. Now you're just illegal and now you're subject to all kind of stuff. And so
yeah,
I went through that growing up. And in fact, when I was studying for my bar exam at my home, I was still living in West Oakland at that time.
yeah,
Uh, you know, I heard some wrestling on the gate next door to my house. And when I looked out the window, to my surprise, you know, there was a brother who was on the ground and two officers were beating him up and he
yeah,
was crying out for help. And, you know, so at that time, what I wound up doing was I went to my gate, to my security gate, and I called out, hey, 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 what are you guys doing? You know, trying to distract their attention, let them know this wasn't just going to happen without anybody seeing them. And
yeah,
so this is before the days of, I'm going to date myself. This is before the days of having cell phones with
right,
videos and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff. You know, I think we were still working with Nextel back then. But anyway, so they stopped beating them up. And then that brother came back to me like about, you know, 3-4 weeks later
yeah,
and was like looking for witnesses. And I happened to be home and I told him, hey, it was me. And of course, he was happy that it happened to be a law student that was his witness because I had some social credit, you know.
yeah,
And so I referred him on to a very famous, well-known attorney named John Burris.
hmm,
And, you know, it went on from there. And then after I graduated law school, I joined the
yeah.
fight for our rights as a civil rights attorney and practice law, like I said, going on 16 years defending the community.
Yeah. So going back to the backdrop of growing up in Oakland where the Black Panthers, you know, started. I've been watching a lot of documentaries just revisiting lately, you know, on the Black Panthers and Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton and Fred Hampton and people like that. So I grew up in east of Dallas. So
Okay.
Texas. So it's a little bit more country around here. There's a lot more, racial problems and undertones and things like that. Like the city I grew up in is called Greenville, Texas. And
Mm.
up until I think the 60s and maybe even the 70s, they had a sign that said, "Welcome to Greenville, the blackest land with the whitest people." And,
Wow.
because it was known for cotton out there. So, so just talk about having, because with Oakland, with having the Black Panthers, being prominent out there, just kind of talk about growing up with that in the background.
Absolutely. My mom distributed shoes and clothes and helped with the Black Panthers breakfast program, which many people don't realize. The idea of having meals in schools
Yeah.
started from the Black Panthers. Before
That's,
they did it, that was not anything that had been done.
mm,
Our people were going to school not only intellectually hungry, but
yeah.
also physically hungry because we didn't have the resources in our community. So the Black Panthers started out. So I heard that growing up in terms of her stories and her involvement and participation in the struggle for freedom and equality. And so that that was the context of which I saw the world. And then, as I said, I had the ability to go to a very nice, distinguished, upper class Catholic private school. And I
Yeah.
only did that because my great grandmother was a domestic worker
Yeah.
in the affluent parts of town. And this family, gave us an opportunity. So, seeing both of those sides, understanding what the Black Panthers stood for, understanding that was in my community, and then going across the community by
Yeah.
bus, pulling up to places where they have fountains and circular driveways, and mom is there to pick them up, and they got computers and all the things that we didn't have. We were starved from.
Yeah.
It really framed my idea of there was two worlds and
Yeah.
maybe more, but there certainly was two societies happening at the same time. And
Yeah.
so that fueled my passion for the fight for our people.
Yeah, and it's interesting having those different perspectives. I grew up in the talented and gifted program,
Mm,
so therefore, probably 95% of my classes, I was, maybe either the only brother in the class or maybe two at the most. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? And so, but still living in the same neighborhood and still playing sports with all my other friends. So,
yes.
so you're dealing with both sides, and and not only that, being a dark skinned brother at that, growing up in the '80s, that's a whole nother.
Tell me about it, brother. Uh-oh. Look, that was so powerful it knocked my stand down.
Yeah, but just growing up that way and realizing that yes, it is two worlds. We're in the same world, but everything is different. And then when you mentioned about being 16 and driving, like my son is 17 now, and so I have the same conversations with him, because when you first start driving, what do we always taught? Make sure we have your registrations where you can reach it real quick.
Absolutely.
Make sure you have your license ready. Like, if you pass a police officer or if one gets behind you, it's like everybody in the car straightening up. You know what I'm saying? And it shouldn't be that way. Like,
Right.
we're conditioned to be prepared, and by all means, if you get stopped, it's like I already got my license and my registration hanging out the window. Like I ain't playing no,
Right.
you know.
Absolutely. It turns into a situation where you're just trying to survive, So
Yeah.
we're taught these things as survival tactics. This isn't necessarily just to, as you learn, you need to look over your shoulder before you make a left turn.
Yeah.
This is so that you could get home safely in one piece
Yeah.
and every night. And, many people don't have to go through that. We do. And
Yeah.
so it's the talk, it's the rite of passage,
Hmm.
but it's not right. And there shouldn't be a middle passage anymore.
Right.
These are the type of things that shouldn't be going on, but it's true in our world, in our country. This is exactly what you have to put up with and deal with if you're a Black person, period.
Yeah, and we also talked about, when you're pulling over, if you're able to try to pull over where there's some light. Don't pull off on the side of the road where it's just you and them almost. It's like, okay, try to pull into a gas station where it's some extra light. Hopefully there's some more people around. And so starting there, I wanted to kind of get into your I know you said you worked for several years with John. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, and was it there that you started your Know Your Rights campaign, or?
Absolutely. So once I had to learn about our civil rights
Yeah.
and had mastered the idea of representing people whose rights were violated,
Hmm.
I started going around talking to community groups, students, high school classes, junior high classes, church groups,
Yeah.
whatever, whoever was interested in learning more about how to protect themselves and
Yeah.
how the system works. So I started with that, and given at that time I was doing civil and criminal defense, I
Yeah.
learned how to incorporate both
Okay.
into talking to people about their rights. When you need to produce an ID, what can the officers actually do if they pull you over? What questions you need to be asking? Am I being detained? Am I under arrest?
Yeah.
And some of the rights that we all hear on these TV shows that
Yeah.
we all know by heart. But I tell you, time after time again, I watch people not exercise them. The right to remain silent. Anything you do can and will
It
be
will.
used against you in
Yeah.
a court of law. I mean, if you take each and every word and really think about what they're telling you, they're saying anything and everything you do right now is going to go against you. That's my goal,
Yeah.
is to prosecute you in a court of law. I mean, as soon as you understand that, you need to zip it up, right?
Right. And that's just like illegal searches as well. Like we always feel if a police officer asks you to search the vehicle that they're going to do it anyway, and we all we typically always agree to it. Like
Right.
I remember I used to do a lot of events and promos and things like that. So I used to have a truck, so I always had boxes of flyers or
Mm-hmm.
promotional items or whatever. And I just remember getting pulled over in some apartments one time, and they literally had me dump everything
Oh,
out of the boxes. You know what I'm saying? Like, they went through everything, and it's
mm-hmm.
like, midnight, and it's like, really, like, what do you think I have? Like, it's,
Right.
yeah,
It's a sad situation because the dynamics when you're confronted with a police officer and you're alone, you're scared, you feel helpless. The number one feeling is A, you want to survive, and B, you're like, yo, I just want them to know I'm not who they think I am. I
yeah,
just want them to know I'm not the person you're looking for. The problem is you are the person they're looking for, and you're exactly who they think you are. And so, we give up our rights because we don't want to be in an antagonistic or confrontational situation with the police when they're the ones with the gun and the badge, and you're just there with your hopes and the prayers. So, but the issue that we try to do in those situations, and what I try to teach people, is to ask the questions, but it's not like you have to ask them, as sometimes, if we've all heard, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
yeah,
So, asking somebody, hey, officer, I need to know, am I being detained? Officer, am I under arrest? And if they're like, hey, we need to search your car. Well, I'm sorry, officer. Blame it on your attorney. I told my client, blame it on my attorney told me,
yeah,
that you not to search my car unless you have a search warrant. And then typically what winds up happening is they'll try to do a little psychological thing. Say, well, we're going to have to sit here till we get a dog, or, we're going to have to sit here till we get a warrant. If you don't have anything to hide, you would just show me and da 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 da. So on. But that's the point, right? Is they
yeah,
want to convince you to give up your rights, because trust me,
right,
the thing that I tell everybody when dealing with the police, if they're asking you, nine
yeah,
times out of 10, it's because they don't have the right to just do it automatically.
yeah,
So, if they're asking you, if they're telling you and asking is two different things. Get out the car, that's
hmm
a demand, that's a command, that's an order. But hey, would you please, would you like to get out of the car so I can search you? No. But if
right,
they tell you get out the car, well, I mean, that's different,
yeah,
so it's one of these things where, there's a slight nuance, but language is important when you're dealing with the police.
yeah. And the funny thing about being pulled over while driving black is we never realized that I the other races don't typically get asked if they have drugs or weapons on
Ah,
them. Like that's and you don't realize it until you're having a conversation with someone from another race about their experience getting pulled over by the police.
so, that's so very true. And the statistics, certainly here in the Bay Area and Oakland and San Francisco in particular, prove that African Americans behind the wheel get pulled over disproportionately.
Hmm.
Force is used on us exponentially more than what we represent in the population. And the bad stuff, the drugs, the contraband that they're looking for is found at a higher rate on other races than it is black people. So you really, the statistics show, contrary to what, people might want to say, is that the average black person has a least likely chance of committing the crime or holding drugs or things like that than others. But we seem to always hit the lotto when it comes to being harassed, beaten, or shot. So, it's nonsense, and it needs to stop, but it's one of those things that happens far too often to us as black people. And it's just a shame, because it only takes, like what we saw with Sandra Bland, or, other people, where all it takes is the initial interaction. And from there, it could wind up death. It could wind up trumped up charges. It could wind up with a beating and injury, and these are not just physical scars. Even if you survive, they're mental scars, because the experience is with you till, forever.
Absolutely. So speaking on your personal experience, tell me about your new project, the short film, Dead Right. Like, man, it's an amazing piece. Like, man, I looked at it. I probably watched it at least 5 times. When I first got it, and I showed it to my wife. I showed it to a couple friends of mine. I even sent it to Mike Bennett. I didn't even realize. That's one of my good friends.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, Martellus and Mike, they're like my brothers.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, hey, small world. Like they say, we're all cousins.
Absolutely. So as soon as I sent it over to him, he was like, "Yeah, that's my guy."
Absolutely. So, I had the experience that so many people have had, and even I had as a teenager. It's just this time I was in a much different position to deal with it. Yeah. So I was about 3 years ago, just driving down the street, minding my business, going to the grocery store. I was not dressed like today in a nice suit and tie and all this kind of stuff. I was just dressed, like I was running an errand, man. Still nice stuff. Trust me, I was still fly, but I had my Nikes, little sweats on, so on and so forth, minding my business, driving slow, going to the grocery store, thinking about what I was going to pick up. I didn't want any leftovers. It was the day after Christmas. Yeah. So about 7 o'clock, and it was dark time out here in California. Next thing I know, I see red lights flashing in my rear view. So I look up, and once again, when you give the talk to your son, and what you learn as you drive, you're always kind of scanning for the police. I mean, you're trying to make sure that you're not running afoul or doing anything that's going to attract their attention. So I was surprised that they had snuck up on me or were that close to me, and I didn't notice it. Yeah. So I go to just pull over. I'm on a main street. I just go to pull over so they could go around me, because I'm thinking, hey, they must be trying to get to somebody because they're so close up on my bumper. And to my surprise, they didn't go around me. They were there for me. Right. And so when I pulled over and I looked into my rear view, all I saw was a silhouette, a shadow of an officer. And I could tell from the stance that he was pointing his gun at my car, and he was yelling with the intensity of someone who had just was like dialing roof, who just committed 9 murders in a church or something, So, he's yelling at me, get out the car right now. Driver, get out the car right now. And he has a gun, and, and I won't curse on your stuff, but, it was a lot. He wasn't.
Hey, man, do you?
Yeah. Get out the fucking car right now. So I'm sitting here, I'm like spooked. And then on the right side, the passenger side, all of this is going on. Sorry about that. All of this is going on behind me. Man, he's telling me, get my hands up and don't move. Do not move. Do not move. So I'm put into this conflict. Do I follow the officer who's super intense behind me on the driver's side saying, get out the car right fucking now, essentially, or I'm going to shoot you? Or do I listen to the person on my right side that's saying, if you move, I'm going to shoot you,
Man. Yeah.
So I am like, mind you, I was in a fog. I'm like, I'm snapping into it. I'm sitting there like my heart is racing. It's in my throat. Yeah. I'm sweating. I'm trembling. And I had to negotiate. I had to get myself under control. And then I had to talk to these officers in a calm manner while they are still on 10. They're turned all the way up with guns in their hands. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I've seen this scenario play out so many times. So they got the guns on me. And so I'm telling them what I'm going to do in order to get out the car. And when I finally negotiate my way out the car, step by step, I turn around and I'm like, hey, man, my gun's in the air. Like, I'm an attorney, thinking that might mean something.
Oh,
Mind you, I'm an attorney that sued the Oakland Police Department 30, 40 times. They know me. I know they know me. I'm on the news, TV, everywhere, you
Yeah.
know, taking the depositions and all of that. So instead, what winds up happening, he says, we don't care about that. We'll deal with that later. Turn around. So I turn around, hands up, you know, legs are shaking and everything.
Yeah.
Fortunately, someone was there who happened to be, a sister was driving down the street, pulled over, see me getting harassed, you know, didn't know it was me, and was over there on the side filming. And man, that was a saving grace. And then what wound up happening, they had me get on the ground. You know, they still got me, they made me crawl backwards, knee in the back, handcuffed, put in the car, had my car searched, you know, and only to find out, and this is something that I'm sure your viewers can appreciate, you know, I fit the description.
Always.
I fit the description, right? The description is there was someone who, first it was brandished an AK-47. So that means showed in a menacing way, in a threatening manner, brandished an AK-47 in a silver car in Oakland. Now, this is the kicker. I wasn't even in Oakland.
Yeah, you were outside.
I wasn't even in the city where it happened. And you know, I understand bad stuff happens everywhere, and stuff in particularly happens in Oakland, but I'm sure that person who was brandishing AK-47 was not driving an S550 Benz. Okay, I put money on that. You know, so I'm like, what? And then when the sergeant came and they finally cleared me, said, well, it wasn't me, and he wanted to apologize. He said, well, you know, my guys were aggressive because, you know, there was someone who fired an AK-47.
Different things.
I'm saying, wait, hold on. Just a matter of minutes. It goes from brandishing. Now they did a drive-by out of S550 Benz. Man, come on. Get me out of here. Just let me go. Let me go. Let me go. And so they did. And then I doubled back. And this is something that I really want everybody to understand.
Yeah.
When you're on the streets and you're dealing with the police right then and there, sure, you can assert your rights. And there's certain ways to do it. And I tell people and teach people how to do it. But that's not necessarily the time to try to get into the confrontation and do everything else, you know, because they have the upper hand.
Right.
I had to wait until I could get the upper hand and put it into a legal process that I could control. And so I filed my internal affairs complaint, you know, and they found those officers that violated my rights. Then I filed a lawsuit too as well. So, you know, and I had my day, you know, using the bully pulpit of the media to chastise and also to hopefully educate the police on the harm they caused, what they did wrong, and the public to let them know, look, don't think it's those people. Don't think it's them. You know, don't think it doesn't happen to people who are upstanding people and have credentials and stuff. Man, none of that mattered right then and there. I would have just been a dead black man on the side of the road with holes in me, with hoping that the community stood up for me and hoping that someone took care of my kids and my mama. And so no one should be in that position, brother. And that's what dead right is about. You don't want to be dead right, but dead all at the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what made you want to turn it into a short film, and how are you using it? Well, I know it hadn't really came out yet, but I'm interested to know how you're planning to use it as an educational piece, from my understanding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the film itself isn't out. The trailer is up on my Facebook page. It's on my Instagram page, you know, both under my name, Adante Pointer. But, you know, the film will be coming out. I'm planning right now to release it July 15th, which is my birthday. But, you know, it's just a couple of weeks. But you know how that is, man. If the demand is out there like that, then, you know, I'm not going to deny the people, man. I'm a lawyer for the people, so I would never deny the people.
Right.
You know? But yeah, no, dead right. So right now the trailer's up, but the idea is to use it as a way to facilitate a conversation and to bring awareness, you know, and I use myself, you know, I'm not just talking. We have, you know, we have actors, we dramatize what took place, but we also show other cases where people have been injured and killed. And then I talk about, you know, how you use the process when you're more in control. To get to vindicate your rights and to get your justice, because when something like that happens, you should get justice, you know. So that's what we're using it for. It's an educational piece to get the conversation going in communities where it might not be happening, and then to get it in conversation going in our community so that we could talk to our youth, We could talk to our adults. We could
Mm-hmm.
talk to the men and women about when they find themselves in that situation, how to try to navigate it. And then on top of that, you know, to make sure that no one is dead right. Because when you're sitting there, you can have one of two, three different reactions. You're
Yeah.
sitting there, you're either so nervous, you don't know what to do, and
You're
that
right.
could get you shot.
Yeah.
You know, or you're outraged because, you know, with the police don't understand, or maybe they do, but what I think many people don't understand is that every day you go through all these little different microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
at some point you reach your boiling point.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, water turns into steam by just 1 degree of difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I definitely love the piece, and I definitely want to, I was telling Tiffany that I want to be a part of it to help start the conversations. I could see it being used from a diversity standpoint in corporate conversations. I could see it being used in our community just to make sure that we are aware and or know how to handle situations. So and even on like a virtual screening type situation, and letting people write in their responses or how they feel afterwards. Like I could see so many different things coming from it.
man, you know what, brother? I think I'm gonna have to call you after this
Yeah.
and get you intimately involved with the project, because you're right. I mean, all of those different things are ways that it can be used. And at the end of the day, what's most important to me is that we continue to make an impact. And you could do that through film, you could do that through your art, you could do that through being like me, going to court, or you could do it such as yourself with a platform that reaches all the good people who follow and listen and
Yeah.
and follow you. You know, so you
Yeah.
know we want to we want to get it everywhere. We want to spread far and wide. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'd love to be involved in any way that y'all see fit. And going back as well to the Know Your Rights campaign. So for people that want to get involved in that or anything like that, how can is that like is that something that you can send out in the meantime when you can't be everywhere?
right.
How does that part
So,
work?
so we're definitely, you know, in today's day and age, we're definitely transitioning with COVID and everything, because, you know, we don't have the gatherings, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't have the gatherings until all this stuff is better under control. So I'm in the process of putting it together virtually. But in the meantime, you know, people can either hit me up on Facebook, Adante Pointer, Adante Pointer, Pointer, or here on DM me, slide in the DMs on Insta, or, you know, even go to my website for my law firm, and
Yeah.
that's www.lawyers, LAWYERS, Lawyers FTP. And I know when I say that, people are trying to figure FTP. Wait, hold on. Is this brother said? Is this brother? Well, the answer is, now I can't tell you what you might want to make it say,
Right.
but in the formal setting, lawyers for the people.
Lawyer.
Lawyers for the people.
Yeah.
I've been told it can stand for something else. I've been told this, but you know, you can't control what people do. But lawyers for the people, man. Come follow us. It's a journey for justice, our collective journey for justice. And, you know, come find out about the cases, come find out about what we've been doing, and come find out about how we're going to work on this in order to make this part of history, period.
And shout out to Oakland while we at it. My guy Fabby, that's my dog, Fabby J.
Oh yeah, Fab.
Dope
Come
era.
on.
That's my
Yeah. Man,
uh
he's going strong with that, man. That's a good brother, great community leader. I just stopped by the store the other week. We were
yeah.
building, you know, man, Fab's a good dude, man. He put the city on his back.
Man, he
Salute.
does. And my other guy is Maurice, Marshawn Lynch, brother.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Money Lynch, man, come on. Man, both those guys right there, man, they put it down, man. They've been holding it down for the city. You know, Marshawn you know, did something that I thought was very, I mean, amongst all the things that he's done, was he went over to the lake, which is our like gathering spot, and he was just passing out masks to people. And if
Yeah.
you've been looking at social media, man, a mask, not only is it a way to safeguard your health from
Mm-hmm.
COVID, but it's also a way to safeguard you from your interactions with the police
Yeah.
by being out in places without it. You know,
Yeah.
so man, shout out to that brother, man. He's been a good brother, and he's always been putting on for the city.
Absolutely, man. So, my brother, thank you so much for being on the show. I know we could do this all day, but I don't want to take
Absolutely.
time, man. But I look forward to connecting with you offline as well and figuring out some ways that we can do more work together, my brother.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Tell the Bennett brothers I said what's up,
We'll do.
and man, anytime somebody comes out to the Bay, and particularly Oakland, man, hit me up, man. I love to show them around my city, let them show them what it do.
Absolutely, man. Town business.
Yes, sir. You already know. Yeah, you been out here.
A lot of time on the West. I'm usually
Yeah,
hey, but I spend a
yeah.
lot of time out there. They're my people out there, man.
Man, come on, we authentic, man, and it's funny because even though we're on the West Coast, it's a lot like me growing up, like you talked about the police, but me growing up listening to music, I
Yeah,
listened to a lot of music from the South, man,
yeah,
because I understood the struggle, the bass,
yeah.
the bass line, the tempo. It was really similar to Oakland. And so, there's that connection, not alone. Oakland was the last step the last stop on the railroad. And so the sleeping car porters, which
Mm,
was one of the most prestigious jobs you can have as a black
yeah.
man, their union was out here with CL Dellums. So, Oakland and the South are very connected because people left the South that came to the town.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And being from here, man, me and my boy, I think Irv is in here too, but we listen to a lot of Too Short and E4O and
come
D
on.
Shot and all of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the click. Yeah, come on, man. You talking my language right now, brother.
Man.
You
So
talking my language.
yeah, for sure, man. So I hope you have a great day, man, and let's connect soon. I'm gonna get this cut up, and I'm gonna send you this live as well. I'm gonna put it on YouTube and put it out there as well, and I'll make sure and send you the link to it.
Man, I appreciate you, brother, man. Put me on, put the issue on your platform, man. You're a change maker. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Peace.
All right. Peace.